Welcome everybody. I'm Lisa from the Wellbeing Economy Alliance, WEAll, and really excited to have a further conversation, ongoing dialogue with the authors of the Health and Environment policy paper that was recently published through WEAll, and also hear the stories from some of the amazing case studies of best practice that are included in that paper. So if you haven't read the paper yet, we will be mentioning it a lot. You'll hear a bit more about it today, and we'll also make sure to provide a link in the chat and at the end of the presentation. But today is going to be about stories and inspiring stories of how it's possible to do health and environment policy in a co-beneficial way and really make that happen in the real world. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from our three speakers today. It's been a pleasure for us at WEAll to work with this amazing team of authors, not just to create a really inspiring and compelling paper, but on a series of dialogues around the paper. And we hope we can continue this conversation on how health policy and environment policy can come together in inspiring practice and help to build a wellbeing economy where people and planet can thrive. So I'm going to be sitting back and participating for the most part, and I'm going to hand over now to Fabio, who's one of the authors, who'll explain a bit more about the paper, and then we'll get into conversation with our three fantastic speakers, Emma, Piedad and Zina, later on. So enjoy, and if you have any questions, you can ask in the chat. I'll share the link to the policy paper now. So over to you, Fabio.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you for introducing WEAll, and thank you for introducing us all, and for introducing me as well. So today we will be talking about 3 case studies that we highlighted in as best practices in our report that came out just a few weeks ago, and that we launched last week, exactly last week. We wanted to have 2 separate events, 2 different events, one focused on the national and international level, and another one focused on the local level. And last week, we launched the paper with Lorenzo Fioramonti, acclaimed scholar and former Minister of Education of Italy, who told us about the work that he had been doing as minister to promote a well-being economy and to promote a healthy environment and an environment that in turn promotes healthy lives. And in particular, we heard from him about the efforts that he put into trying to make sure that that pupils at school could learn about climate change, and the fact that Italy became the first country to mandate climate change education. But today, instead, we will be hearing about 3 case studies, again, from 3 different countries, 3 different parts of the world, Scotland, Sweden, and Ecuador, who will be telling us, a person from each organization will be telling us about the work that they have been doing, again, in order to promote a well-being economy. But before we turn into that, let me just give you just a few words, just a brief summary of the report, which, by the way, you can, of course, you can also find online and read online, but you can also find a recording of last week's event on YouTube if you want. And here's the team that made this work possible. Unfortunately, Alessandro, Amanda, Claire, and Eloa couldn't be with us today. But if we're here today, it's also thanks to them. And of course, Lisa also helped us as well. So thank you for making this possible. With regard to the report, in a nutshell, I mean, the key message that we wanted to give, the takeaway message, is that health and the environment, they are deeply interlinked. We cannot expect people to live well and people to be healthy if the environment they're living in is being damaged, is being not taken care of. Now, this is not something that we're not the first ones who say that. Of course, this is something that others have been saying for decades. But there's 2 kind of original ideas underpinning the report. And the first one is that health and environment, they are fundamental to our well-being. There's no way that we can promote well-being and a well-being economy if we not take care and if we not take into account both of them. And the second original idea is that we need to have an ecological ceiling, but we also need to have a social floor to that ceiling. And these two elements, they are deeply interconnected again, and we cannot expect one or the other to essentially to exist in a kind of separate space without the other one. If you have a ceiling, it's also because you have a floor, and if you have a floor, it's because you have a ceiling. They are deeply interconnected, and they cooperate, and they are deeply connected. And we showed example and the practicality of this in 5 different areas that we deemed as the most fundamental ones for our lives: energy, food, health, education, and social cooperation. And what you will see today as well is that these five areas are not like silos. They're not independent. They are instead part of the same systems. And even though we show them here as sort of coffee beans, they are actually part of the same system. As you will see today, those organizations working in all parts of the world that are focusing on education or food, they're actually also achieving and improving, for instance, health outcomes. And they're also having a positive impact on social cooperation, energy, and so on. So again, key message, key takeaway message: all of these areas are deeply interconnected, and we need to remember of this health environment nexus. Now, the first organization that we will be hearing from is Move Food. Move standing for Muir of Ord, which is a small village in the Scottish Highlands. And we will be hearing from Emma, who's the founder of Move Food, and who unfortunately had to leave Move Food recently because she took up a new job at Highlands Adapts. However, you will be hearing from her about the amazing work that they have been doing in Scotland. And I have to say, before I give the floor to her, I worked for a few months at Move Food, and they're really amazing. And you will see all the nice things that they've been able to achieve. And as you will see again, these, just like at the other case studies as well, will show that it's not just about food actually, but it's about health as well. It's about social cooperation. It's about mixing all of this together to achieve, to fight climate change, to achieve a well-being economy. And so, without further ado, Emma, I'll leave the floor to you, and thank you for taking part in the event today.
Well, thanks, Fabio, and thanks for inviting me along. I have to say I'm rather flattered to think that you've highlighted Move Food as an example here, but it's great to be here this afternoon, and I'm hoping just to give a little flavour of the type of things that we get up to at Move Food. So we could just have the next slide, that would be great. So as Fabio said, Move Food is a community-led food charity that is based up in the Scottish Highlands in a small town called Muir of Ord. And our mission at Move Food is to inspire environmentally friendly living and to build community resilience by bringing people together to grow food, knowledge, and confidence. Next slide, please. So everything we do at Move Food is based on these 3 words: growing our future. From planting food for the next generation to nurturing community-spirited volunteers to see themselves as stewards and guardians of Mother Earth. We take a really holistic approach to cultural change through connecting people to themselves, to their community, and to the environment, promoting values of kindness, compassion, support, and creativity. Our local environment is very important to us, and we are committed to improving our green spaces and increasing local biodiversity, and we do this together. And from our work, we see firsthand the benefits of people coming together in community action, designing their spaces, getting their hands in the soil, connecting to life, and connecting to the beautiful ecosystem that we're all part of. When working in nature with others, you can feel that energy shift. People's language changes. They start to smile more, confidence and self-esteem blossoming. It really is truly magical. And over the years, I've been blown away by how simple this actually is. We don't need to do or have much to transform someone's life or our local place. Next slide, please. So at Move Food, we believe good food is a fundamental human right. We passionately believe that everyone in our village should have access to seasonal, chemical-free fruit, vegetables and herbs all year round. Well, as most of the year round as possible, living up in the Highlands of Scotland. And we've created multiple growing spaces throughout the village, including a new orchard where we've planted over 50 mixed trees, fruit trees, as well as smaller pocket orchards in residential areas throughout the village. We have 25 grown boxes, some of which you can see in these photographs here, and they're all planted up with seasonal food. They're planted by the community for the community. Furthermore, we've developed a primary school garden to include fruit bushes, an orchard, grown boxes and a polytunnel. They're all bursting with yumminess. And we also have a second polytunnel on the edge of our village. And here we grow a fantastic diverse range of food, including grapes, which is quite an achievement up here in the Highlands. And all this food is planted in partnership with various groups and volunteers with the multiple purposes: social inclusion and sharing knowledge and improving our local environment. It's really important to emphasise that the food is for all and people can pick for themselves. And we also have a gardener that harvests and puts the produce into our community fridge for sharing. And our community fridge is an important part of this model, as it has become the platform for everyone to share their surplus food, from local cafes to multinational supermarkets to local community members. The fridge connects people and it engenders the values of compassion, sharing and nurturing. Over the course of our projects, we have worked with lots of different partners, of which you can see a few have been highlighted here. And this is imperative to the delivery of the Move Food mission. So the first one here, Taradale Primary School. We take a real holistic approach with working with the local primary school. We work with the pupils, the teachers and the parents. It's all really about creating a community, upskilling everybody, making everybody part of the journey. We have growing, harvesting and cooking integrated and enshrined in the curriculum, and upskilled the teachers to be delivering this. And then we all enjoy eating together as well, which is obviously a very important part of it all. It's really a really important part also is helping parents to connect to the school, reducing barriers and the stigma. Move Food is about everybody being equal and everybody being included. Another partner is the Department of Work and Pensions. And through our local job centre, we have ran back to work programmes where people would come along and help with tasks that need to be done throughout the village in the various different growing spaces, and they have opportunity to work in a team, to connect to their community and their local environment, and just to feel that real sense of purpose. And you can see the impact this has on people's confidence and positive outlook on life, and it's exceptionally rewarding when you see people going off to study or to go into work because of their experience that they've had with us. And then another partner here I've highlighted is NHS Highland. And we work with our community mental health team with our Flourish group, which is an 8-week course for those that are suffering from mild to moderate mental illness. And the whole idea here is to get people outside and connected to where they live. And there's a lovely space beside our village hall where the Move Food office is, and the Flourish group had that space to design. What would they like to see? And they created a herb garden, a sensory garden, and with a joiner on the team who's built lovely swinging benches. So real opportunity for people to use different skills to create the space that they want to see. And it really does create a lovely sense of ownership and pride for people. And again, what another lovely thing that we see is people that come to Move Food and take part in these various different programmes, how they've then gone on to garden at home, or even if it's just cooking, or even if it's just growing tomatoes on the windowsill. They've been able to see that joy of planting a seed and it turning into food, and that really is contagious. And we have various other partners. Some might be working with our local authority, with the sheltered housing department, and working with residents to grow food in their spaces, in their gardens. Another example would be working with our local scouts group, and the youngsters have adopted some of the growing boxes and they're responsible for looking after them. And then on a different scale, we work with some of our local businesses. For example, recently we have worked with a local cafe earlier on in the year to run the Great Moo Cook-Off, which was actually quite a lot of fun and was a good way of connecting people when we were actually separated due to lockdown. I just wanted to sort of wrap this up by concluding that there's lots of positive things going on, and I hope that you enjoyed a little bit of a flavour there of what does happen in Muirvord, but it is all very fragile as funding is very limited. This has all been funded through the Scottish Government's Climate Challenge Fund, and thankfully they do look at things holistically and with multi-purpose, which is absolutely fantastic, but it is fragile. And obviously COVID has impacted some of our activities, but the whole team's really motivated to build this back up, especially over the summer as lockdown starts to ease. And during COVID, we've seen a real heightened and increased appreciation of the power of green space and community connection and access to local food. But communities with a growing project have had the mechanism in place to respond to the crisis. However, not every community has had this chance. And something I'm really passionate about is that we really need equity of access and opportunity. And my wish would be to see every community have their interpretation of a Moo Food. Thank you, and I look forward to answering any questions that you might have afterwards.
Thank you so much, Emma. This was very nice, and I'm looking forward to the questions. Now I would like to introduce our second speaker, which is Piedad Viteri. She is a trainer in social design, permaculture, education for sustainability, and SDGs implementation. But today she's here as an environmental advisor of the Johannes Kepler Colegio in Quito, Ecuador. So it's a morning for her today. So thank you for joining us. And we decided to have the case of this school in Ecuador because they have a very holistic approach to teaching. Their vision is to form world citizen and excellent human beings, I'm citing this from their website, who care about the environment and their community, and they want to initiate change. So they have schools from the preschool to the high school. They all are in the same campus, and they integrate their teaching with the SDGs, the UN SDGs, and they really have a very green campus. But now I would like to leave the floor to Piedad so she can give us more information and enlighten us with a lot of nice pictures from her school. Thank you, Piedad.
Good morning, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you for inviting us. The Johannes Kepler School is always pleased to share what the learnings and the defiances of education for sustainability. I would like to share the screen, please, if you can give me access to the number 2. Okay. Then what we really think is that okay, education for sustainability, we started with including the SDGs in the curriculum, like from the vision of being an ecological school. It started to, okay, so let's start with the SDGs. Let's include the SDGs in the curriculum. And then the study of the SDGs started, and then we declared the school a SDG territory. And how we can move along with this to be coherent, that was the next question. Okay, we study SDGs, but do we implement them in the school? the families implement them at their homes. So we started to change the infrastructure, and this is where I said that one of the important basis of education for sustainability is regenerative design. We also call it like a holistic and regenerative education. And started by the climate action with energy and water systems, water harvesting systems, and also bioconstruction using material and natural materials, and having also, as Emma, we think it's very important to reach the food sovereignty and food security. So growing food is one of the most important things that we have to learn. So we have like this orchard as a class also, and we have like orchards where the gardens where the kids and also the big ones learn to grow their own food, and with diverse methodologies, techniques. And also we started with the forest school. This is also like what we called synergic solution to the health problem. And as you say, the health and environment is one. We also brought this solution to have 44 spaces like outdoor classes. So we move all the classes to the outdoors, to the forest, and we also started to restore the forest. As always, we have this process that some forests are like monocultives of some trees, no? But we wanted to gain back biodiversity, and all with a pedagogic process where we are always have like these paths with interpretation paths where the kids know about the species and they map them and they also plant them. And then we get to what the garbage management, which we think it's very important to teach, to know, mostly for the people in urban context, because it's starting from the classification and the compost of the organic waste. And also we have like this been producing like these step-to-step manuals, so people can know it from the beginning to the end what we have to do. And something that is very important, not only as a school, as you said, we want to be an incubator, not to direct, but to incubate the excellent human beings that care about nature, that care about each other. So we always do like this social approach to also recuperate and work with the local region, like to have this incidence in the regional. And we work with the 4 dimensions of sustainability, which is social, economical, ecological, and cultural. And from that, we relate to the study areas. And we are now heading into a plan where we are focusing more in project-based learning. Another base of the sustainability education for sustainability we think is the concrete learning and systemic approach thinking. Okay, so we started to share with children, so also with festivals and cultural music, and also other authorities, other schools, and that's what we reach to the social. We also think like the mission is the cooperation for regeneration. So that's where we started articulating networks of youth networks, school networks, and enterprises, also networks for reforesting. So we get alliances so that the young people from schools come into the restoration programs of the region and start helping with the reforestation. And this is like a kind of map of the systemic view of how we think cooperation for regeneration is. Like we have to get together in order to change things, in order to also regenerate. And so that's what we wanted to share this day. Thank you a lot for your time.
Okay, thank you, Piedad. Now I want to introduce Zina Hassan. Is there, maybe you could click on the next slide so we can see her picture? Yes. So next we have Zina Hassan, who is the founder of Root Food Malmo in Sweden, who is our third and last case study. So Zina is the founder of Root Food Malmo, but in addition, she's also a senior lecturer at the Department of Design at Linnaeus University. Her work explores food as material for knowledge production and for learning. And we chose to showcase Root Food as a positive case study because their work is an excellent example of the co-benefit approach in that they reduce food waste while simultaneously fulfilling a need by donating food to those who need it. But of course, this is only one example of the work that Root Food does. And I will let Zina tell you all about it. Zina, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Raluca. And I might add here that Raluca also has been a huge part of Root Food since its beginning. A very active member and project manager at Root Food in its
It was a really great experience, I have to say. It was amazing working with Root Food. So I am a bit biased.
Let's see. I mean, it's awesome to be part of this ensemble, as I already mentioned, more so because of the way you try to guide discourse, rhetoric, and practice away from a mainstream understanding of economy, along with practical examples. I was listening to your talk from your last panel, and you kept on, like in your questions, stress on the word practical. But how do you practically implement these theories that you talk about? So I like the, I would like to comment you on your double-sidedness in your kind of paper, that you hit at both these aspects about doing the new, bringing the change, practicing new relations with the economy. So I'd like to dwell upon this newness in the end of my 5 minutes here, but perhaps if you show the first slide. Here is, let's say, this is one evening, 5 hours, about 25 volunteers dropped in to one of Europe's largest organic food fair. And the food fair has been running with 250 food producers, distributors in a conference hall in Malmö, south of Sweden. And at the end of 3 days, all of the 250 distributors will be flying back to where they came from in Europe, and then all the food that has been displayed and put on showcase and put out as test, what's going to happen to it. So in comes Root Food with its volunteers. Takes about 3 hours to gather food from the stalls, and then takes it away. About 20% of the rescued surplus here is used to generate income for Root Food's activities by selling them as food products and in catering. And then 10% goes to the volunteers who help for their time and labor. And the rest goes to food insecure groups in the city.
Zina, sorry, I just wanted to interrupt for a second. Your sound is a little bit.
This way.
Yeah,
it's my
maybe it's
headset.
better this way.
Well,
Great.
Yeah. So that's the story of that one night. But let's just zoom out and move to the next slide, because that kind of activity is coming in, seeing something that is like an event-based. It's not a regular activity that we rescue like a ton of food surplus in one evening. Working with food surplus is a matter of kind of working with unstable, inconsistent supply. So this way of offering a service where the product is, the amount of the product is not a given. It's this kind of relationship with your consumers or your audience. The stability does not exist. And then, so what is what kind of an organizational structure activity meets this kind of instability? Root Food has been working with these central questions ever since it was founded in 2015 in Malmö, which is a city in the south of Sweden. It's Sweden's third largest city, but the city with the kind of highest degree of ethnic diversity. There's a group that's trying to ensure that there's at least one representative family from each nation in the world in Malmö. The city has such pride in its diversity. So working in such a embracing, also don't have to remind us that Sweden is a welfare state. So the health of the public and is taken care of by the state. Working in such a context with what has been, at least since the 1980s, seen as a purview of either dumpster divers, food activists, or the development, the civil society, as this is a food surplus, or it can go to charity to those who need it. Or dumpster divers are the one at the front line of the showing us how to deal with food waste. Now, each of these practices, they come with their own set of manifestos. So for the dumpster divers, they have their understanding that you shall leave the dumpster in a better state than you found it. You shall take only as much as you need. You shall let your fellow dumpster divers know what there is. So this kind of community building is why is it only seen as a practice amongst activists only, and can it not be part of kind of the mainstream? Here at Root Food, we set it up as it's not something new. The idea of rescuing food surplus, eating it. But we set it up as under the label of Sweden's first food waste catering service. And that kind of captured the imaginary of the consumer, who is the eater, because it blurred the lines between the eater as activist, the eater as someone who is food insecure, and the eater as someone who pays for food waste. So we set up a catering service where there is a price tag on the food that you buy. We rescue food surplus, and then we sell it. And as I explained, part of it is for income generation to keep the activity going, and then part of it is shared amongst the food insecure groups. And here you have Dennis, one of the earlier members of Root Food, going on his weekly round on the cargo bike, rescuing bread from bakers in the city. If we can go to the third slide. So what new ways do we relate to buying food waste? So imagine calling up and saying, hey, I heard that you rescue food surplus and can I buy from you? What will the menu be like? And then we're like, we can't tell you what the menu is because we can't tell you what we're going to be rescuing. What we can tell you is that it's going to be enough and you're going to be satisfied at the end of it. So it creates also new understandings of, the consumer is always right and the consumer always gets what they want. It creates a new relationship there. Now, dwelling on this aspect of relations and the economy, we can go to the next slide, Raluca, or whoever has that. Yes, thank you. Is this other understanding of economy as being, the hidden part? This is an iceberg model of economy that we see here, and the most of it is under what we do not see, hidden. So capitalist businesses and paid wage labor producing for markets is what we understand as mainstream economy. But all the other activities that are hidden is also what comprises economy. And this image itself is from the research network called Community Economy. So you can find it on their website, communityeconomies.org. And it was initiated in the early 1990s by two economic geographers, Catherine Gibson and Julie Graham, who go by the pen name J.K. Gibson Graham, who remind us that the obscure, the hidden ways of relating to economy needs its own upcomings, needs words to describe it, because they are as well what makes this huge iceberg that we can know as economy. And they put it together as they go around mapping different activities around the globe as part of their research work, by calling this as ways of surviving well together.
Thank you, Tina.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. These presentations were great. I think we have a lot to discuss, and I think there's so many common features between this project, even if they're very far from each other and in taking slightly different approaches. But I want to give the word to Raluca, which has a question for all of you. So we can start the Q&A now and see also if some of our participants then have some questions for us.
Yeah, I did want to kind of get us started on this conversation. And so what I want to ask everybody, our speakers from the different organizations, is what are some things that helped you get where you are? So how have you been able to achieve what you've achieved? And what have been some obstacles, some challenges? And if you have time, I mean, I really don't want to take up all our discussion time, but if you have time, what is something that how do you wish the system, or what kind of infrastructure would you need to continue to live and thrive as an organization?
Maybe we can start from Emma, since she had been talking a while ago now.
I'm lucky to go first, huh? What helps? I think that involving the community from the very, very start. So the community designing the spaces, the community being involved. What do they want? What does the community want to see? And just really create everything that we've created has been in partnership with them. And I can't emphasize enough the importance of working with our partners and none of this is Move Food stuff. We all see this as the community stuff. So it's the community orchard, the community fridge, the community boxes. They're not we hand over we see ourselves as enablers and facilitators to make these things happen. So I think that approach has perhaps helped a lot. Obstacles are, it's perhaps a rather boring comment to make, but the largest obstacle is financial support. It's very difficult. I'm impressed by hearing some of the other speakers in terms of the creative ways in trying to make these initiatives and projects financially sustainable. That's something that we've struggled with a lot at MoveFood. A lot of our partners, for example, NHS Highland, they love what we do. They can see the benefits to their patients, clients, but then there is no funding stream to then support MoveFood to deliver that. So funding is an issue, and it certainly impacts how effective we can be within our community. An obstacle would be a lot of this is volunteer led, and I'm sure it's the same in all countries. There's a lot of volunteer fatigue right now. That's certainly something that's a challenge for us to try to overcome. Something that I would like to see systemically change would be from a government level, there actually being a value to the community growing sector, to actually really value what it is that our sector is actually doing, and the important role that it has in the crux of what you are illustrating here in your policy paper, that we are it's a preventative we are helping people from getting really ill. We're helping people recover from being ill. We're supporting people back into work. We're creating the next generation of children that are connected to their community and to their environment, and they see their bigger purpose and role in life. That has got no value within the current system. And I think that what I try to press with our MSPs in Scotland is that we need to really, really value the sector if we're serious about it. And like I touched on at the very end of my presentation, is that we could see during the COVID crisis that the communities that had structures and mechanisms in place, like community growing organisations like this, they were able to look after their community. They were able to look after people and respond by setting up emergency food supplies, by helping people in their community get their medicines, walk the dog, whatever it is needed. There was a structure in place to mobilise that volunteer activity. And then in neighbouring villages and towns that weren't lucky enough to have something already in place, nobody was looking after them. And it's that inequality that really concerns me. And I think if this sector was valued and there was investment in it and it was taken seriously, then we should be seeing projects and initiatives like MoveFood everywhere, as not just if you're lucky enough to have someone in your community that's had the energy to do it, but it should just be a standard part of community life.
Thank you, Emma. Yes, absolutely. I think the community is like one of the strongest points in your project, but in every project that we are discussing now. And I can think about Piedad, maybe she wants to go next, because I mean, with your school, you are also creating a community and connect with the community outside the school. So maybe, yeah, we want to go next to discuss these points that we are discussing with Emma.
Thank you. Yes. We also consider that schools are communities, are educative communities. So are like also the nodes of the network for change. And also the social aspect is always where the change comes, because sometimes you can design regenerative technologies, regenerative processes, and also have a lot of techniques. But where is the problem? Is the people to be aware? Is the people to start changing the paradigm? So I think the crisis is always the opportunity. The crisis gives us the learning that, okay, where people was sometimes some people is not so open still for for the change, but then the crisis comes and they are now open for the change and looking for solutions, and to be also to activate as part of the solutions. And also it give us creativity, because like in the lockdowns, we couldn't go out and we couldn't do reforestations, large reforestations we were organizing before. Okay, we change it to 18 events of 20 people and we start to getting more and more creative. How are we going to continue learning from nature, because it's not only in the screen. So this I think crisis is also always like a launcher and also the social aspect is the one that has the tools for creating like this systemic change in a lots of people. Thank you.
Thank you, Piedad. I'm sure that you have something to add to that in terms also how you managed with the food during, for example, the pandemic. And you mentioned already a bit, but maybe some additional obstacles that you found during this period. And also, yeah, what also Raluca was asking about infrastructures, what would maybe facilitate your work more.
Thank you, Georgia. The first part of the question was about enablers, and one of the biggest enablers were the youth, who just dropped in like flies around cake when we announced that here's an initiative, you want to take part. And really we kept the doors open and left it for whoever entered to the door to voice and frame their own contribution and involvement. And then it was about having the organization be organic enough to kind of take it in, or build up in a transparent way. The youth involvement did not go in along this cost benefit approach. I'm giving in this, and what are you doing for me? They really believed in this benefit for all and value generation through ethical activity approach. So that's quite heartening, given that the way we're eating now has been like this only for the last 60 years, since the rise of globalization. So it's them who know best where we are in the world today. In terms of the challenge and the pandemic right now, I have to say, I stepped out of the leadership about 2 generations of the board that runs the organization. And during the pandemic, we've had a couple of nervous breakdowns amongst the more kind of core members. And that's about how one understands what a citizen-based initiative runs. So it's about how much control one wants to take up as a leader of an organization, and how much one kind of believes in trusts in the community to have the organization running. Another challenge is this kind of societal understanding of what is a successful initiative. It's monetary understandings. So if you can keep basic income going for 3 full-time employees, then whoa, you're a great startup. Constantly pulling our initiative into this startup rhetoric has and trying to counter that with look, here's what is hidden in the way the economy functions. This is also economic, because this feminist viewpoint, without using the word feminist, has been a challenge. And finally, infrastructure that helped. Yes, I did say it was a welfare state, but also Malmö is innovation-oriented city. So the local governance from the city and also the regional governing body did provide funding in the earlier years, not for wages, but for communicating, for making public our activities. And that really helped, not just in terms of papers and pens and stationery, but in building communication assets to send out there in forms of workshops and posters and web presence.
Thank you, Zina. Thank you all three of you for that fantastic detailed response to Raluca's question. We've just got a couple of minutes left, so do the audience members have any questions for any of our great speakers that we've heard from today? You can ask in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself and ask away.
Yeah, otherwise, I mean, we started a bit late, so we can continue maybe a few more minutes. So we don't want to take too much time, our speakers, right? But if we don't get any questions from the audience, maybe we also had some questions for them. But I wanted to ask you first if Emma, Piedad, and Zenita had like question for one of the other speaker. I think that would also be nice to maybe give you the space to interact with each other instead of us asking you questions.
I had a question for Piedad. It was about the content and who becomes plays a role in education for the next generation, and what are the kind of knowledge artifacts that are being passed on in terms of there are these values of the regenerative that are probably in the teaching as well, and as well as the educational activities. What about local, I would hesitate to use the word indigenous knowledge and practices? Is that also actively and consciously part of the activity?
Yeah, well, we are like a hub of projects. So we have a lot of scholar projects, and also as now we are focusing on project-based learning, so students can develop the creativity on the 4 dimensions of sustainability, which is social, economical, ecological, and cultural. Okay, so they have like the vast wide thematic that for students that they can also like harvest, no? Also from collective intelligence and also from the local and regional. But as a school, we also have like this regional incidents. Okay, so we work with other schools that are near, we work with communities, indigenous communities in reforestation, and we make always like the sharing. Yeah, okay, we go to reforestate, to plant trees, then the local community also will share something with the students. We are always looking forward for that. But I think also that's something that I wanted to say before in relation to the paper, which is that economy, from the Latin root, it means the house administration. So this is the vision that we also create like the environment to harvest, but also like the prosperity will come from the nature forces, from the nature-based solutions. And so this is the way, like reconnecting with the nature, with the landscape, and with the social camp that it's near and like in a spiral. Okay. Thank you.
And I've noticed that we have actually another question from Stephanie for Piedad as well in the chat. What kinds of changes could you see in the kids once they change to this kind of school system? So do you have anything to share about that?
Well, the kids are always like the fire of the oven. So they will always take it deeper. and they will take it like, okay, but you're not coherent, you're not doing this, mom. So you have to learn. Check at my school, I have learned this, so you have to do it in the house. And so they are spreaders, like they spread it to the houses. And also Also, we saw that we have to have this wide view, because sometimes if you are just with one point, like ecology, to the young students, they say, but I don't want to do just one thing, like let me have other themes. Okay, so we focus that the integral vision and sustainability is wide, and then they are the ones who take it to other, like they have become like these agents of change. So they start processes, they start projects, they start activism, and yes, that's how it works.
That's great. And Emma, it looks like you've got a question as well. Maybe you want to ask your question of Zeenath. You've addressed it to both, but maybe for Zeenath to answer, and then I think I might need to wrap up after that. So go for it, Emma.
Yeah, hi. I was just really wanting to get a little bit of a flavour and idea about what you thought the wider kind of cultural change in your community has been since you've launched your initiative.
Thanks for that question, Emma. As we, try to work towards a new, it's not some kind of preset imagination of that's the new. It's an emergent development. Yeah, we work with what crops up. So and there's also no causality of it's because we did this that happened. But since we started, we see ourselves as a transition organization towards that which we believe in, where things should be headed. And we've always said we want to shoot ourselves in the foot, that we shouldn't have to exist anymore. There shouldn't be food waste in the first place. But since we started in 2015, we have seen that Malmö, in the gastronomy world, has its own high-end food waste surplus restaurant. And we've seen the city pick up more conversations with the supermarkets and the waste distributors and entrepreneurs as a way to try to find entanglements. So yeah, and also loosening of the policies around how to touch food waste, because earlier it was like, no, if it's past its best before it goes to the dustbin. But now even the food monitoring authorities are getting lax in their policy of how to handle food surplus. Oh.
Yeah, I can really relate to that, because 5 years ago when I first opened up the MooFood community fridge, there was nothing like that anywhere around. So it was, the local supermarkets, the shops, the cafes, everybody thought this was, it was really quite scary because it was different. And then they're worried about how they would be liable for things. And now you see that across the Highlands, there's 20, 30, 40, if not 50 community fridges or tables or sheds or whatever they are, what's relevant for that community now. And it's just incredible how you see a little shift, isn't it? And suddenly something becomes normal, where 5 years ago it was just such an odd thing that people were frightened of. And now it's lovely to see how you've taken it to another creative level, and what you're doing is just fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you all so much. It feels like we could keep talking all day, but I'll have to draw us to a close, I'm afraid. I'm going to share this slide again.
Lisa.
Yeah.
Sorry, maybe I just want to ask one question before you wrap up.
Okay.
Just very quickly. No, I was just wondering from all the three of you, because I mean, today it's mostly female speakers, right? And I kind of get the impression it might be a misconception that I have, misinterpretation that I have, but it feels to me like when it comes to food and when it comes to education, it's mostly women who seem to be interested in sustainable development and indeed in food and education and so on. So I was wondering whether that is just, whether you think that's the case or not, and if so, why? Do guys like me get interested as well, or do you see like women getting more interested in these themes?
I could jump in there.
Emma, go for it.
Yeah, jump in and say, your observation, Fabio, is my observation. I think that this, without sounding over the top about it. I think this is the time of the rise of the feminine. You know, I think the fact that we it's not necessarily just women per se, but it's certainly people that are coming from a sign, you know, the compassionate, nurturing, kindness, those kind of values are underpinning a lot of what's going on here. And Move Food predominantly attracts women. All our employees are women. The majority of the volunteers are women. And some very special men that join the journey, like you, Fabio. But no, it is largely women, and I think it fascinates me, this concept, because even another initiative that I've recently been setting up with called the Highland Good Food Partnership, again attracts so many women, but then the men that it does attract are men that are connected to that that wider kind of holistic concept of life, and coming from a more a place of more, as you say, education, nurturing, working together, collaboration, connection rather than competition. And I think this is a fascinating fact, and it's something that I'd love to hear more about or read more about.
Do any of the other speakers want to give their views on that? Zina?
Okay. Without kind of essentializing gender roles, it's you know, how many of us can say the words economy and care in the same sentence, and that should be the test of, like, yeah, can you do stuff like this, and when it comes to kind of observations, I mean, it's at par from my experience. Oh.
Last word.
Just to bring diversity to the question, I haven't seen that. Like I have seen as well as men, as well as women, in all the where we are in the school. So there are both of them. But I also work with other networks, and I see both of them. I don't know if it's maybe here, Latin America, or but I have seen both participating and being aware. There's always like some I don't know. I think the sharing of aspects of masculinity and femininity is happening also. So women can get concrete and men can be more sensible during the process. I've seen both.
Yeah, so I think there's a whole other event about the masculine feminine nexus in health environment policy, and definitely another paper in that. But thank you, Fabio, for that question, because it is really striking today. Fabio is noticing that he is the only male person in this conversation today, and maybe you feel that a lot, but it's a really interesting question, and I appreciate your reflections on those feminine values and of nurture and care. And WEAll has published this amazing paper that has brought us all together today, and also has a series of other papers exploring these big questions. So if you go to this website, weall.org/resources, you'll find this policy paper and also others. And we'd also encourage all of you who are here today to get involved with the Wellbeing Economy Alliance. We are working all the time on what it means to design policy for a wellbeing economy that delivers social justice on a healthy planet. And this paper is part of that work. And stories like the three fantastic stories that we've heard today of your initiatives in Scotland and Sweden and Ecuador are so important to making it feel possible and showing that it is possible for people. So thank you so much to our three speakers for your amazing contributions today. As I said, we're recording this and we will be making it available on YouTube and spreading these stories as widely as we can afterwards as well. And hopefully you'll do the same. I'm really grateful to everyone for being here today, and particularly to our speakers for that great conversation.